Yeah. And here's the cool thing is that, it's difficult to make the choice, but what if, right? It was just literally automatic. I could do that where it's just this is the automatic feeling, is the allowing. The automatic feeling before was not allowing. I need to make this go right.
I need to aggressively help you.
Aggressively help you. Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. So really what we're talking about really is a resourceful automatic reaction.
Hi, I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Well, hello in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. And we're the duo that hosts the New Life Perspectives radio show here on the UK Health Radio Network. And we're also the pair that created the Cognomovement system. And today's another installment of our behind the scenes conversations. As we've said before, Bill and I are constantly talking about Cognomovement and what's happening around the world. And we have this inside track. We get to hear about all the miracles that are happening everywhere. We get to hear about our practitioners who are working on a specialty and need to make some adjustments to make those changes. We get to hear about that. And then, we get to hear about a lot of people's problems that need the system. And so we're talking about a big one, relationships. Like we're talking about your primary relationship in this episode, but it really spreads out to all the relationships. And the bottom line is, and you may never have thought about this before, but relationships are two nervous systems having a conversation. Right, Bill? That's what it boils down to.
That is true. And when we started talking about this, it finally made sense that we know that your subconscious is your nervous system. It is the feeling that is automatic that ends up causing us to make decisions about our life, whatever it might be in a relationship, how long I stay in it or don't, what I tolerate or don't, how much love I can give, how much love I can receive, what is happening. It is so very, very obvious when you look at the people in your life, your mom and dad or brothers, sisters, or friends. You see them in relationships and you're like, wow, what about that? Why would you ever? Right?
Right. How many people do you know that say, yeah, we really like each other, 30 years later? Yeah, we have a great relationship. Things are good.
Right.
You don't hear that. I made a little list, Bill. You said it's your subconscious. And what does that really mean? What's included? So here are the things that are talking to each other. So you and this person that you either potentially are going to have a life with or 10 minutes with or not. Here's the things that are talking to each other. Your whole past, meaning your ethnicity, right? Your religious beliefs or worldview, where you lived, where you grew up on the planet, where you were born. That has a very specific signature that your body learns and gets in step with, right? Your family, the opinions of your family, like your family's political leanings or just judgments are in there. And then every little thing that may have hurt your feelings over the years, all the things that seem like amazing to you over the years, the things that light you up, the things that turn you on, the things that turn you off. Those are all the things that are literally talking to each other. Now, the fact that anybody's ever match up is like a miracle, right?
Yeah.
That's who's talking to each other. You think it's your logical mind and their logical mind. It is not.
Yeah. We think that, I'm making a decision about this person. But if you back up for a minute, we were talking about this yesterday. If you back up for a minute and you think about, let's say, romantic interests, you ran into, someone in your life that you were like, whoa, ho, ho, hey there, what's going on? You've had a real feeling, right? It was involuntary. You didn't look at a spreadsheet and say, oh, yeah, we've got here shoulder length. It seems to be we've got a little wave to it. And it's whatever. They're this tall. They have this much money. Right? These things are there, right? But you get an involuntary feeling. You see it, you get around it, and all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, it's on. That's correct.
Right. And then you have the infatuation stage. And this is that part that we got so fascinated with. What is that thing? That is your nervous system lit up and on a mission. Because if you think back to the times that you were just infatuated, and you can swap that word out with obsessed, because you can't think about anything else. You can't do anything else. You do stupid stuff to be in that person's presence, right? You are driven almost in a way that's insane. You're mad at that moment, right?
Right.
And that infatuation is all of your neurological drivers pushing you towards something, and in a way that really can be unresourceful, because they say love is blind, but the truth is your nervous system blinds you. And so I think this is one reason we end up with so much divorce. So many relationships start with infatuation, right? And in the infatuated stage, you make decisions like, hey, let's move in together. Hey, let's have a kid. Hey, let's move to Barbados. You do things. And if you think back about it, you recognize that blinded, insane state. And people mistake that for love. And love is something very different. Right?
Yeah. Right. Right. This is actually, I trade you very much, or I want you very much. It's very different.
But what do you even want in that stage? I don't know about you, Bill McKenna, but there was one time in my life where I found myself like infatuated with someone. And looking back later, I'm like, I have no idea, not a clue what it was about that person that my system was like, woohoo, this is the one. No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can recognize this state and do something about it, being infatuated does feel great. It's very exciting, but it isn't the way to choose a mate. And if you think about this yourself and the people you were infatuated with that it didn't work out, and you look back and you wonder, what was it about that person? Was it exactly what they look like? In my case, no. Was it their financial situation? No. I couldn't put my finger on it, Bill. Could not.
Yeah.
Something in my nervous system recognized something it thought might keep me safe and alive. I don't know what that is. And I'm not a person who makes decisions that way. Absolutely not. So that was not a good state for me to be in. And it's really not a great state for anyone to choose. We were talking about this with my niece recently, and she is kind of falling in love with someone. We were talking about this idea. And she said, "Oh, I don't know. He did this thing the other day and it was kind of annoying." And I'm like, ding, ding, ding. That is when you actually do really like someone, is when they annoy you and you like them anyway, right?
Right.
I'm not talking about when they do something awful and you forgive. I'm talking about, you know, they farted at dinner and you're like, that's gross. And you're like, that's gross. Don't do that again. But you kind of still like them anyway. It doesn't make you think, I'm not interested in this, right? So that's that stage in which everything sort of settles down. And now you start to see who they really are. That's the place where we want to be in. Do they share your values? How do they get along with their family, right? What does their financial picture look like? And is it something you're willing to accept? Because that's huge. Most people fight about money, right?
Right.
Um, do they match your global belief system? That's big too, right?
Right.
So when your system settles, lots of times people have already hooked themselves to that wagon, and the answer is no. And now you're off to a marriage or relationship that just flat out sucks.
Right. You're there, and you kind of wonder, like shaking your head, like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? But this involuntary reaction is the driver. And it's the driver of all of your relationships. And the relationships can be in business, right? In business, one of the real interesting lessons that I learned on the path was that people will justify a feeling, meaning they're going to either buy something or not buy something, or do a transaction, buy a company, and they'll do absolutely the unreasonable because they have a feeling. Look at Elon Musk. He had a real feeling about Twitter, and he spent a lot of money to get that. And what a lot of people felt was overpriced. I think that particular guy will flip that somehow, and he'll make an extraordinary return, as he always does, because he's extremely creative, a brilliant man who takes lemons and makes lemonade. But as we saw, there was a lot of emotion in that transaction.
Yeah.
And it turned to the point of almost an irrational amount of money to make that actually happen. And this is with all of us. We're not Elon Musk, but we do go out and buy refrigerators, cars, TVs, whatever it might be, rings, and it's all driven by a feeling.
You're exactly right. So it's this feeling of, I got to have that thing, or that person. I mean, we get infatuated with a car, with clothing,
Right.
with Amazon, all the things, but there's this driver. So let's go back to just core relationship for a second. So you're in this infatuated stage. And the truth is, you make up in your own mind who that person is, what they're about, and what your future is going to be like. And let me tell you, that is a fantasy. We all do it, right? And you'll find yourself, talking them up to people, maybe even making things up about them that aren't true, just to really match the fantasy that you have about the person, because your nervous system is so certain, right? So driving you to this thing. Then life happens, and now you're going to have another feeling. They do something that's outside of that fantasy, or even just outside of your whim for the day. And now you get another feeling. Sometimes it's equal and opposite, instant fury, instant, maybe even hatred, because that thing that they did unknowingly matches that thing that your grandpa did, or that thing that your mom did, or that thing that Billy down the street did that irritated you so much. Now, this person that 5 minutes before was the universe to you is now boiled down to all those people who made you feel that way before. And they're responsible for all of them. Not just the minor or major infraction they did right now, but every person that ever did that thing to you, every one of those circumstances lines up in a line, and your nervous system is ready to punch them right in the mouth, right?
Exactly.
So now this person who, first of all, has no idea the fantasy that you've made up about them, they don't know, right? They're just going along doing their thing. Also has no idea that they have just insulted your ancestors. How are they supposed to react? There's no way they can get it right. No way, no how they can get that thing right. All right, let's take our break here right on the edge of that cliffhanger and reel from the good folks at the UK Health Radio Network. Okay, we're back. We're talking about relationships, and I left you guys on a cliffhanger, right? You were infatuated. Now the person has made a misstep. They've insulted your ancestors. They don't know what they did wrong. And now you start pushing, right? You're this, you're that, you did the thing to me. Or maybe you're a person who retreats and is devastated secretly, does the silent treatment. Here's where the very first crack in your Fantasyland castle happens, right?
Right.
The mistake here is that only you can change you. That person cannot make the thing right. They can pick the socks up off the floor. They can tell you look pretty. They can take the thing back that they spent too much money on, but they can't make it right because that's not what you actually want. And this is the thing that Bill and I were talking about. If every human used Cognomovement system or something like it to actually put your system back into neutral, where you could see everything clearly, I think we'd have so many less divorces. Because first, Bill, I suspect that a lot of people would not end up together in the first place. They would see through the infatuation and realize, oh no, that's not a match. And two, if it really was a match and they made it through the infatuation, they would know how not to start pushing and pulling against each other based on all of their history. What do you think?
I think that you're absolutely right. And I think there needs to be a prerequisite course. And here's the title of the course. For anybody who's getting into any relationship, how are my insecurities that I have going to, as I bring them forward into a relationship with fill in the blank, anybody, what's going to happen? I have my own set of insecurities. How is this going to impact a relationship? And to be honest in your prerequisite course and to process that, meaning allow yourself to feel that insecurity. That insecurity is not going away. It will be expressed in the relationship, no matter what the other person does. How many people have had situations? I got to tell you, I was laughing about this with my brother. My brother cannot see. He's literally always had really poor vision, has to wear glasses, and they've always, ever since, we were young, the glasses were super thick He was really cute, and you know, the thick glasses and stuff, and always had an eyesight problem. Well, anyway, you know, he doesn't like wearing glasses and stuff, and so he, you know, he kind of gets through without glasses, right? Unless he's like reading stuff, you know. So he's during the process of, you know, the time of life of dating, you know, you know, eating, you know, going out to dinner, you know, on a date with a girlfriend. And, you know, he is the most committed guy, loyal to a fault. There's never, the man has never gone out with two girls at the same time. It's one girl at a time, you know, take a ticket, I'll get to you next. But right now, it's this girl. So that's his nature. And he's a you know, wonderful human. Anybody would be, you know, it would be great to marry him. So he's sitting there having dinner, and he's just, you know, he can't see. So, you know, he's just looking, you know, and the girl is like, you're looking at that, you know, whatever, you know, somewhere, you know, because he's kind of dazes off, you know, looks around. And because of her insecurity, she was like, obviously he's looking there. And he's literally like, I can't see. I can't see it. You're accusing me of something I can't see, right? I'm not looking because I can't even see it, you know? But anyway, all of us, right? And nobody's immune, myself included. Where every relationship, our own neuroses, our insecurities, if we could deal with this prior to the relationship, because if you're honest, really honest for a second, really honest with yourself, you know what? I do feel this way. I do have this. I do have that. Okay, well, exactly what's going to happen next?
Yeah, you know, that it's interesting because if that person were able have the tools and could recognize, oh, this is actually me. And if she would have said, I'm so embarrassed to tell you this, but I have this weird insecurity. And just now it appeared like you were looking at some other girl. And I know that's a problem, but is that what was happening? And he would say, oh my gosh, actually, no, because I can't see any other girl. Probably would have been a laugh and a bond, because
Yeah.
then they could have had the conversation. Why are you insecure about that? Well, my dad cheated, and you know, then I've had 3 boyfriends, and you know, I'm working on it, but it's an issue for me. Think about how heart opening that conversation would have been.
Yeah.
Simply by the recognition, oh, this is me and something from my history, right?
Yeah.
And I realized quite a while ago when we started working with people on relationships that everything is a neurological conversation. And we start to push and pull against each other in ways that our logical mind doesn't know. But our logical mind gets convinced that they're wrong and we're right by the feeling in the body, right? So that girl probably saw him looking around, figured he's a cad, looking at some other woman, you know, got that fire probably in her belly. And then the message went to her brain, cheater alert. And then here it comes right out of her mouth, fires the bullet. And it's a bullet, right?
Yeah.
Going to impact somebody else and either light them up or devastate them, right? These are bullets that we're firing at each other. And we don't realize it's happening unless we do. And when we do, it can change everything. It can be. So I'm working on this book. I've been working on it for, oh gosh, the better part of 9 months. And it's called 50 Little Things. And it's 50 little neurological things you can do to strengthen a relationship. And at the end of the show, I'll share one that you can use today. But I realized that we are constantly, Bill McKenna and the world, in this neurological conversation with each other. And the quality of that conversation determines the length and not only the length, but the beauty and grace of that relationship, the depth of love and appreciation, or the ongoing war. So if you think about this, you've got dinner time, let's say, and one of the partners makes dinner, and after a long day's work, and the other person eats dinner and then gets up and goes to bed, leaves the dinner on the table, doesn't offer to help, right? The person who made the dinner and worked so well thinks, that jerk, they're taking advantage of me, they don't appreciate me, they're this and that and the other thing, and maybe that turns into 3 days of the silent treatment and then a blow up, and then the offending party has to go out and buy jewelry to make up for it.
You're the offending party. I like it.
The pattern goes, or the offending party is like, hey, they start to fire their weapons right back, and now you're in a civil war inside your house. That could end in divorce. Could be that simple. So, we have our own medicine. We Bill and I work our own things. So a while back, I don't know how long back, this happened in my house. I made dinner, we were both just exhausted or whatever. And we just put the dishes in the sink and didn't do anything. And, the next day I got to get up and do the dishes because a lot of times I work from home. Well, this happened a few days and I'm getting annoyed. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is me. So I used one of the 50 little things. And I said to my husband, my love, when I get up in the morning and I have to do the dishes first before I start my day, otherwise it's a cluster. Then it's kind of it delays my day, and I'm kind of annoyed because I made the dinner. And he said, oh my gosh, I've thought about doing the dishes all the time. He's up at 4 a.m. He said, I just didn't want to wake you up. I was trying to be considerate. I'd be so happy to do the dishes in the morning. I'd love to help you, right? Civil war averted. Otherwise, I would have made up he doesn't care about me. He's taking advantage. He's a male chauvinist pig. None of that was true. But that required checking myself first and asking, would you mind? Here's a way that could really help me in the morning. And would you mind? Absolutely, I don't mind. He would like to do things that help me out, make me happy, just like I would. So consider that. When our neurology was talking to each other, we were speaking 2 different languages. We were on 2 different planets, not in a mean way, but in a way because we just didn't know what the other needed. How many relationships end in divorce over something like that? Or maybe it's not today, but maybe it's 10 years from now because that thing grew, a huge pine tree out of it.
True. And here's the thing. This is so basic, but very few people understand. They get a feeling and they think a thought, and it's true.
Oh, yeah. It's
damn true. And if you've ever tried to talk somebody out of being angry, it's like, it's irrational. You can start to give all kinds of rational arguments. They cannot even hear you. Why? Because you're talking to them, but they have a feeling. That's their subconscious and nervous system. And that is overriding everything, which is so very, very powerful. It makes us do things that are not even in our best interest. So many people will do all kinds of things. It runs the gamut. It's not just relationships. It is their health, their security. It is their finances. Everything is affected by this automatic response. And you know what? It's not your fault. As Liz was saying, the programming comes down over generations. And this is actually a scientific fact. We talked about in other episodes the mice. And Dr. Diaz at UCSD, I believe, Dr. Diaz and the mice, he had a little cage with mice in it, and it was electrified on the bottom. And he would take this fruity smell, this chemical fruity smell, and he would waft it over the top of the cage. He would shock the mice, and he kept doing this. The mice were traumatized. They ended up taking the egg and sperm out of those and artificially inseminating other mice who had never been associated with these traumatized mice. Those mice gave birth. Those mice grew up. He put them in a box, put the fruity smell over wafted it, and the mice went nuts. It was like, fruity smell. Oh my God, we are going to get shocked. They had nothing to do, right? They had the genes of them, but
the experience, right?
They never had the experience. So this type of thing, the trauma of your ancestor plays out. Why did I react so harshly to the glance of my mate over towards, somebody? Why did I react so harshly to, I asked them to get me French fries and they didn't get me French fries. I ended up getting pasta. Whatever it is, like completely irrational responses. And it's the micro ones. If you notice all of those micro ones, I'm giving extreme examples, but it's the micro ones that go minute to minute within a day.
Yeah, it is. You're right, Bill. It's that little series of fractures, and those fractures start talking to each other now. Now this is a new threat. And your nervous systems start pushing and pulling at each other. And this is more than just your mate. This happens with your children too. So let's take a quick break. Let's hear from the folks at the UK Health Radio Network. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about how this spreads into everybody. So we're back and we're talking about how the nervous system of each person in a relationship actually is doing the communicating. And I started to say, Bill, that this goes into relationships with your kids. I was watching the Super Nanny the other day. Have you ever watched this, the Super Nanny?
No, I never have.
It was a UK health show, and this nanny comes in and she helps people handle their problem children. And some of these children are insane. I mean, it is crazy the things that go on. The one I was watching, this woman had a 3-year-old and like a 6-year-old, and the 3-year-old punched her right in the face. Kick her. I mean, it was terrible, break things. And every time, the moral of the story with the nanny is it's the parent. Parent has to be retrained. And the children fall in line. And so I was thinking about this, and I watch families with teenagers. I raised 2 kids. They're grown now. But I would watch my friends who had teenagers, and they were in a war with their teenagers all the time. There was this real antagonistic relationship with their kids. And, you're grounded and you're not going out, and you're and the kids are fighting, and it was ongoing. And I thought, we just never had that in our house. Once we had Cognomovement, I understood why. Because I never had that feeling of antagonism towards my kids, ever, not even when they were little. When they were little, it would be a glance. Please stop that. That's unacceptable. The answer is no. But my body would send a signal. No, we're not doing that. And my husband did the same thing. There was never a big fight with our kids, and they were never unruly. I mean, they did some things over time, but also even those things to me were like, okay, well, that wasn't great. Let's figure out how not to have that happen again, right? So even with our kids, we start throwing daggers. We start civil wars inside our house, and all they can do is throw them back or create a shield against them. These feelings that we have that we don't even say to each other, they get felt and returned. Like you say, return to sender bill, right?
Right.
In this in families.
Right. Yeah, it's like an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
It is an echo chamber. And it is in observing other families that you can really start to see this. It's almost hard to see it within your own
Mhm.
house because it's too close. So
Yeah.
you almost need like a break. Take a break, you step outside, get in the car, drive away, do something, so you get a little distance on it and see, you know, could it be a reflection of what I'm feeling? You know, do I have some of those feelings?
Hmm.
And with that, obviously the others resonate, kind of like tuning forks.
Yeah. I had this great gift and I don't know where it came from, to be honest, Bill McKenna. But when my children were born, I had the understanding that they were a whole human, that they were not mine. They were a whole human, deserving of respect and kindness and love, and not mine to push and shove around or boss around or make decisions about what their life would be. That it was my job to keep them safe and help them grow and teach them as best I could, but they were not mine. And that actually bled over into my relationship with my husband. Early on, I was probably like every other wife, all my past would build up and then I'd be mad at him over nothing, right? Or over something. And then it would have to last a certain amount of days, the silent treatment or whatever. That was my weapon of choice, you know. And then one day I realized the same thing about him. He's just a whole human. And I got to shift. This was long before Cognomovement into I just want them, my husband and my children, to have a happy life. I want them to be as happy as they can be. So this is what it's all about, this feeling in the body, right, Bill?
Mm,
Sudden there was this collapsed wave of push,
mm,
just a softening and an opening, like as a human, not just as my man, my husband, the father of my kids, as a human, what do you need to be happy? What do you want? We forget that when we get in marriages, we think, okay, now we're all in one dinghy rowing out into the ocean and we're all going the same direction. And that is not true.
mm,
Shared experience,
mm.
choose. But we each also have directions we'd like to go. Maybe go over and explore this for a bit and have the freedom to do that. I don't mean explore other relationships. Some people do. But what I meant is, my husband liked to go hunting in Eastern Oregon, and there was this ritual with his dad and his friends. And I started to support that wholeheartedly. We'd plan for the year, what do you need? Is there something I can help you with? I would put together medical kits, homeopathy that would say how to treat a bee sting or a snake bite, right? So all of a sudden, he's like, wow, thank you so much. It's really okay that I'm going for 2 weeks. Yeah, because it was okay for me to go to Italy for 3 or 4 or 5, right? We together started this tradition of supporting each other in our great loves that were outside each other, which has been amazing. And we both have had these great experiences. So, but it was a feeling, and that is what we teach in Cognomovement. When you can recognize there's a feeling that's shooting at somebody like a dagger, it's a dagger. And if your intention is not to shoot them with a dagger, that feeling has to be changed. And when the feeling changes, it changes what the heart thinks. And then it changes what the mind thinks. And then it changes what the voice says, right?
Wow. Perfect. For all of you listening, that was just absolutely beautiful, Liz, to walk us down that primrose path. And what I loved about it as you were talking is, you know, the feeling of the dagger as contrasted by this other feeling of, I want to support you in your happiness. This is a very different energy, a different feeling than the dagger. If you're listening to this right now and you just kind of observe, everybody knows lots of couples, right? No matter what age you are you somebody who has a mate that, you're like, ugh? Or are you like, I just want to support your happiness? What is that today? What what is that today? Is there something that I could support? And is the feeling mutual? Is this kind of a part of the subconscious, the nervous system that you've actually been able to activate? Now, if you can activate that in you, right, like the tuning fork, unless you're dealing with a sociopath or narcissist or somebody that's got a real, clinical situation going on, you can set up this other whole thing, whole relationship.
You can, because it really is all you. And even if you are dealing with a sociopath or a narcissist, you want to be aware of that. But even those situations you can change, because if you're doing something for a narcissist and you've set up this idea that, oh, I just want you to be happy and let's see what you need, that person could take full advantage. But your body knows it, because now you're doing things that you don't want to do. Now you're doing things that don't make you comfortable. This is a warning sign too. When I do something to support my husband in something that brings him great joy, it brings me great joy, right? If maybe, it's too many times of me supporting him and him not supporting me, there'll be this little feeling in my body that doesn't feel good. There's my warning sign. I have something I need to clean up. And maybe the cleanup is, hey, my love, would you mind doing the dishes for me? Because it really would make my day so much easier, right? You don't just let people walk all over you, but you have a feeling that tells you something is not right. And that prevents you from going down the road with a narcissist, with a sociopath. When it doesn't feel good, you make a shift. We're coming up against the end of this show, Bill. Let's do a little extended conversation, because I think this topic is so important. But before we do, I promised I'd share one of the 50 little things. And I'm actually going to share two because they're easy. The first one is, when someone you love walks in the room, you stop what you're doing and you look at them. You look at them in the eyes if you can. You let your own face light up and you say, how you doing? If it's your child, oh my goodness, there's my handsome son. There's my beautiful daughter. Or, oh, hi, I'm so glad you're home. You stop what you're doing and you genuinely look at them. We stop doing this in relationship. We don't look at each other. We don't look at each other in the eyes. We don't fully acknowledge our children. My mom said years ago, and I don't know where she got it from, that you need to let your eyes light up when your kids walk in the room. And they notice you noticing them. They are fully seen. There is nothing better in life than to be fully seen by someone that's important to you. You want someone to be important to you, fully and totally see them. So that's number one. And I'm telling you, this will change how you feel in your body. Watch what happens. The first few times your kids might be, oh, mom, bleh, or your mate might be like, oh, what's going on, right? Pretty soon they'll get used to it and you will change the way you feel. My son, he's grown 21. When he walks in the door, I still do the same thing. It's my policy. There's my beautiful boy. And if I don't do it, he'll be like, mom, hello, I'm here. He wants that, right? Okay, here's number two. Number two is catch them doing something right. Catch them doing anything right during the day. Today, my husband did the dishes for me this morning. And I say for me, they were his dishes too. But I know he thought about me when he did it. So I pick up my phone and I text, "Thank you, my love, for doing the dishes for me. It looks great." Now, a lot of people are like, "I'm not thanking them, it's their job." But I'm telling you, what do I get back? "Oh, you're so welcome. You deserve it." Whatever. It's this tiny little interaction that takes 30 seconds or less. And it makes this feeling of it's us. You know, we're helping each other, we're supporting each other. So if it's your child, catch them doing something right and look them in the eye, look at them, acknowledge them, or text and say, "Thank you so much for doing that. That helped me because it made my day easier." You know, I was so pleased to be able to get up and see, the towels in the hamper today because that made my morning quicker. Give a reason, and a real reason, that it supported you. And I'm telling you, people will start to crave these two acknowledgments in your life. And it's a neurological tending to this love relationship in your life. It's like planting a seed and giving it the best fertilizer. And these two things alone can change even the most difficult relationship, because they're two things that speak to each of us at our core. So let's end here, Bill McKenna, and then we'll do our extended conversation. You can find the extended conversations anywhere that you like to listen to your podcast, Spotify, iTunes. Just look for hashtag Wellbeing Radio or Wellbeing Podcast, hashtag Wellbeing Podcast. Look for the UK Health Radio Network and the New Life Perspectives radio show. You can also see Bill's and my face on Cognomovement YouTube page. It's on YouTube. Go to Cognomovement and the whole episodes are there. So this has been a really great conversation, Bill. You ready to continue it?
There we go.
All
Love
right.
it.
Everybody in UK Health Radio, goodbye for now. We'll see you again next week. Be safe and be well. Hey, everybody, we're back. It's a New Life Perspectives radio show, and this is our extended conversation. And we're extending the conversation about how relationships are really just a series of automatic responses that our nervous systems send to each other. We're talking about how, primary relationships, kids, and really the discovery that if people were able to change the manic really response of being infatuated, they probably would make different decisions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Imagine being in control. If you're listening to this, you might have, like, if you look back in the rear view mirror of your life and different relationships of all kinds, and they play out. Well, there was clearly signs that this was not good for you, but you went forward with gusto anyway. Well, you had some feelings, and those feelings were the driver. So imagine if you did not, or let's say you had a tool where you could manage those feelings or eliminate them so that you could make a different decision, right? Would you have done what you did in those different relationships? And we're talking about friendships, business relationships, romantic relationships, you name it, even family relationships.
Absolutely. Even business relationships, right? We had one recently that, it just was not working for us. And we used our tool and the whole situation changed. Now, it didn't really change the human. It's not like, they're our best friend now or anything, but it shifted the situation enough that we could see relatively clearly what was happening. And we changed our feeling about the whole thing, and the whole thing changed. to our advantage. So it's really all the relationships, right?
It's every relationship. And you know, um, really prior to Cognomovement, right? There was no way kind of to manage this. You know, you'd grit your teeth. That's, you know what you do? Grit your teeth, look the other way, try this technique, say it that way. You know, whatever you're, trying to manipulate to, like, don't go down the road. That's a bad road. That's a rocky road that ends up in a cliff, but still you're like, oh, I'm on the road. Oh, I can't.
You know what us girls do, Bill? We have the feeling, and then we go talk to a bunch of our girlfriends who give us, their opinion on the thing. All of their neurology gets involved in all of their past history. And oh my God, the advice is often terrible, but it fuels our fire. So we love it. That's what girls do about it.
Oh my gosh. I got to tell this story. And this illustrates something that we talked about in the episode. And I think I talked about this in the past, but to frame this out, I had a business opportunity that I invested a lot of money in. And the opportunity was literally one of my friends who was very successful, .com that everybody has heard of, that kind of wealthy. And his comment, because we both invested in this startup, I've never heard the word billions so many times. Like, this product is going to, in this market, will be, several billion. And in this market, it's going to be another 10 billion. And in this market, it's worth 50. So, there was huge money. And we were angel investors, right? Anyway, the thing, I ended up at dinner, or actually I think it was lunch or breakfast with the founder. And I clearly, at this point, I had already turned over my money, and clearly I knew this guy is got problems. And I mean, like, real bad problems, like my money's at risk now, because he had feelings of destruction. He had an awful lot of trauma in his life, a parade of horrible trauma, the kind of things that you like, oh my God, somebody actually did that, and so consequently, things were not going well. At the same time, there was kind of massive potential. So, you're doing whatever you can because you're like, oh my God, the potential is like Elon Musk potential, right? So monkey bars, can't let go. I just can't let go. So I sit down, and I do not like this guy. I don't like him. I don't trust him. And there's something wrong, and I can't. And
you got spidey senses going off.
Oh, it's horrible. It's more than spidey senses. There's actual evidence of it being a big problem. So I'm sitting there, and I still remember I sat down, and all of a sudden, my heart, I had this expansion. It was like my heart opened to the point of tears. I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to look out the window. I'm choked up. The tears are starting to come. And it's like, oh my God, I love this man so much. I have never experienced that much love for dog, child, woman, man, anything. My heart opened so much. And I was like, oh my God, I love him so much. And I'm like, stop it, to myself. And I'm choked up and I turned my head to try to look out the window. So stop it, because it was so overwhelming. And I was like, oh my God, I've never experienced this much love. And I was like, I hate him. I love him. I don't know why is this happening? I can't understand it. Anyway, this thing, right? This heart opening, which I've never experienced before in my life. I was like, down, down, down. I was like trying to close it down because it was too overwhelming. I'm literally, so tell me about the latest financials. And slowly it just do closed down, 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 down. Anyway, it was an incredible experience that in hindsight, what after this happened, right? Because it just flared up like that. And after it happened, I would often reflect on it. And it became very, very clear that there was some sort of previous existence that we had before this lifetime. And my body remembered, and subsequent to that, there was all kinds of evidence of it. What I mean by that is there was a web of interconnectedness of people that have no business knowing each other and all being interconnected and coming together around this project. Anyway, it was quite a unusual, shall we say, interdimensional experience.
Well, I mean, that's a kind of a big response that you don't necessarily want to show up out of nowhere. So you want to be able to have something similar, but know how to be in control of it, right?
Right.
I think what happens in a moment like that is there's this clarity of you see a human with all of their things, all of the things that have happened in their life and all of their reasons. One of the pillars of NLP is people have their reasons. They all do. And usually they have nothing to do with you. But if you know the first feeling, right, of I hate him, I hate him, I hate him, he's going to feel that feeling, right? If you know how to shift that in your system, and those of us who use Cognomovement do, we know how to catch ourselves in that automated response and shift it to, I just love this human. I started to use this tool and I absolutely love it. If you can't see my face, I'm Italian. Some Italian women tend to be bossy. It's obviously not me. I'm just aggressively helpful. You like that? Aggressively helpful. So there was always this drive to help people, whether they wanted my help or not, right? My grandma, one time my aunt said, "Ma, you're hurting my feelings. I know how to cook. And you're telling me." And she said, you can watch, but I can do it. She said, "Well, I'm just trying to help you. Don't you want to do it right?" Meaning my way.
Right.
So I learned that through Cognomovement that I would get this feeling and it felt like pushing. I want to help you. I want to give you my thing. I know the answer, and I would feel this pushing feeling in my body. And when that happened, I learned that I take a big deep breath in, I knit my ribs and rock my tailbone forward. It's a way to kind of turn down the nervous system. And it's a reminder of the body. It's also a more inward looking position. I'm not coming at you with my thing. So I'm reminding my own body and physically giving the cue to you. I'm relaxing and kind of backing off. And, if I had already offered the thing and they're like, well, no, because people want to solve their own problems. This is true. I would immediately just reel myself in, put myself in a neutral state, which I know how to do, soften, and just see them as a whole human. There's a whole human having an experience. How interesting. With no need to solve their problem again after that. The people that are around me, they know I have a lot of the answers, but people want to solve their own thing. They don't necessarily want me or you to give them the thing, right?
Yeah.
So now it's so much easier to be around people, to not have to give the answer, to let them and watch them work it out for themselves, right?
Right.
We can do this in those moments, where, okay, I just see the light within that being, the human, the soul coming to have an experience, and there's a body that's doing a good job to house them. How interesting.
Yeah. And here's the cool thing is that, it's difficult to make the choice, but what if, right, it was just literally automatic? I could do that where it's just, this is the automatic feeling, is the allowing. The automatic feeling before was not allowing. I need to make this go right.
I need to aggressively help you.
Aggressively help you. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. So really what we're talking about really is a resourceful automatic reaction versus an unresourceful automatic reaction.
And really, I think the overarching idea is that relationships, and our core ones that are so important, can be like a flow. They can be like a waltz where, you give a little, I give a little, we move, we flow together, rather than a boxing match. And I think most relationships turn into a boxing match long before you ever realize they do. Little manipulations. I'm mad at you. I'm irritated. I'm going to do a little thing. And then a chase from the other side. Oh, please don't be mad at me, right? Oh, well, that got a good response, so let me do that one again, right? We do these little things, and they start with little daggers thrown by your nervous system, and you know immediately how they feel. You said in the beginning of the show today, if we just had a school, if everybody had a manual, and you're 100% right. No one ever in your life teaches you. There's going to be a moment in time where, for no reason whatsoever, you're obsessed with someone. Like, one minute you weren't, the next minute you're looking at them like they're a piece of dark chocolate, like, and here's what you do about that. And here's what it means. And here's what it doesn't mean, right? Here's how you can make an informed choice. Here's how you can enjoy a person, like them, and learn about them in a way that is resourceful. We absolutely need that class. Nobody tells you. You might have a newborn that you literally would like to just put out at the edge of the road and put a free sign. They're so tired, or they won't sleep, or you just don't know how to do that thing.
Yeah.
Thanks. You should just know how to do a relationship. You should just know how to do parenting. You should just know how to own a dog. Oh my gosh, Bill, dogs. We've had so many of our practitioners call and say, I got this issue with my dog. What do? You change you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer. And then the dog changes. It's miraculous. They feel and respond the only way they know how, and that's with their nervous systems. So if we had really literally a manual, people would change relationships. Relationships would mean something different, don't you think?
It absolutely would. Your ability to change those automatic reactions prior to getting involved, like we talked about, your insecurity and, your narcissistic tendencies or whatever might be the case, as we enter into the relationship, what do you think is going to be the outcome? Now's the time. Now is the time to change that for yourself. You change it in you, and being absent that, right? You're going to have a different relationship. And that means whatever. This is business, social, neighbors, family.
My daughter asked me about a friend. He just has this ongoing relationship that's so bad. And she said, why do you think this keeps happening to him? And I said, well, you know the answer. She said, yeah, right. That's right. His patterns. Well, it turns out that the person's primary relationship with his mother is really an ugly story. And you can just see every person, every woman he gets in the relationship with, he's trying to repair that relationship. So he picks some aspect of her and then does his best to change that. Well, the new woman's not her. He can't change that relationship. And until he clears up the first one, meaning the pattern in his body that drives him,
Mm-hmm.
he'll have that relationship 1,000 times over. It'll never resolve. And it'll be one hurt after the next. But the great news is it's totally resolvable. And we've seen people do it. There's
Right.
a feeling. So it's not like you can't change the past, except for that you sort of can. You can change the core feeling about that issue because it's real familiar. It runs the same way. You feel the same. And so when you can change that feeling, and what we mean is sort of collapse it, you get it to neutral. You just don't feel that way anymore. You stop attracting that type of relationship again and again. So that's the great news about this is it's very, very solvable. And there's little things you can do to change the rut you've gotten in with a relationship now. There's bigger things you can do to change those core past relationships. And then there's maintenance things that you can do to change going forward. And all of it is our basic Cognomovement system. It's just you use the feeling that's on that subject, and you do the little bit of work, and it changes the way your nervous system runs on that topic. It's actually easy. I don't know that most people really are ready to do it, though, Bill, to really take responsibility for how they feel. I don't know that people are. What do you think?
For the most part, no. And the reason being is I'm right. I thought it and I felt it. I thought it, I felt it, ergo, it is correct. So this is the very nature of human beings. And until they reach a level of awareness that says, just because I thought it, just because I felt it, doesn't mean it's right. Or another way to look at that is it resourceful? Is it resourceful? And when you start to get to the point where you're like, you know what? Actually, could it be just because I thought it, maybe I'm wrong. Or, you know what? I really feel like I'm right, but it screws up my life.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. So in the end, you don't even really have to worry about whether you're right or wrong. You have to worry about how does this thing feel and how do you like the way it's turning out? It's the Dr. Phil moment. How's that working for you?
Yeah.
Right? So you might be absolutely right. Who cares if the whole thing is turning out wrong and it doesn't feel good and you're not happy? For us, it becomes the choice. Do I want to be happy? Do I want to feel good right now? Or do I want to be as right as I am?
Right.
So we've learned that we prefer to just feel good. And then miraculously, the situation changes on its own. Usually, part of it is that we see something new and different and we do something different. But a lot of times it's just that that person no longer pushes against wherever we're pushing at them or pulling at them. So Bill McKenna, let's end the conversation there. We could talk about this for weeks and months and years. Everybody listening today, if you don't have the Cogno Movement Essentials program, go to cognomovement.com and get that and get started. Get started in changing your relationships. Everybody else, we will see you again next week. Thanks for the extended conversation, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.